We got 24 nominations and 14 wins in the festival circuit last year. I was drag racing at Englishtown Raceway Park. We weren't sure if the cops were going to show up and shut it down. So as a filmmaker, this is like my favorite stuff to do because it helps them, it helps the families, it helps me as a person, you know, to know that I'm doing my part in this world with talent and gifts that have been given to me.
And welcome to the Vision Maker podcast. I'm your host, Victor Miranda here, and I have the pleasure to be with today's guest, Anthony Natoli. He's a director and filmmaker. And Anthony, would you introduce yourself to the audience? Give them a little more of your background.
Sure. I'm a filmmaker. I've been doing this for a better part of a decade now. Started off as a musician, you know, producing music for the most of my teens and my 20s, and then started getting into filmmaking. And it seems like there's a lot of correlation between filmmakers and people who used to be musicians in my circle, as we've figured out from you as well. So you're part of my group of musicians that turned filmmaker.
Yeah, it's interesting. That seemed to be something that happened also pretty exceptionally during the pandemic. A lot of audio engineer friends I know now do a lot of video work.
Yeah,
too.
I think in this day and age, you kind of need to be everything. We don't have producers and directors in the same way that we used to 15 years ago. You know, it's not, you're sort of in charge of your own destiny. So if you're a musician, you got to probably produce your own records at this point. If you are a filmmaker, you probably got to produce your own stuff. If you're a musician, you're probably going to produce your own content, visual, so it goes hand in hand, I think. So I think we're starting to see a bigger coagulation of different mediums coming into this. Chefs, people that are, big on TikTok are getting good with lighting because they have to. So
Yeah, I mean, I would love for you to expand actually a little bit to our previous conversation earlier today. I would love for you to dive into your background actually as a musician and how it kind of led you into filmmaking and that journey, those kind of trends that you've seen.
Yeah, I've been playing guitar since I was about 4, and I grew up in a very musical household. My uncle was a professional guitar player, is a professional guitar player. We drove race cars. We had always, things on a trailer going somewhere to go fast. So music and racing were always a big part of my life. And I think how that connects to filmmaking. Well, as a musician, studying guitar, playing drums, recording, you tend to see that there's a lot of commonality between all of those things.
Parallels.
A car engine wants to be happy, balanced, needs a mixture of air and fuel, and it's the same thing with cooking. You making something, it needs a certain combination of stuff. Music, too much, too little of anything could ruin a mix or whatever. But I grew up with mechanics and musicians and artists in my household. So I went down the path being a musician. I always raced go-karts and dirt bikes and race cars. But by the time I was in high school, or leaving high school, I should say, I was drag racing at Englishtown Raceway Park in New Jersey. And I wound up becoming the track champion there for the high school division. And
That's pretty sick.
yeah, it was
Fast cars at that age.
It was fun. It was definitely a blast. But at the same exact time, my band was doing very well, and we played a show at CBGB's one night. Got a lot of interest, and wound up signing to Capitol Records right at the same time I won the championship. And I also was about to go to college.
You must have felt on top of the world at that moment.
I guess not really, because when I look back, I mean, I definitely felt good. It was fun, but I was very conflicted because I was like, am I going to keep
Interesting.
drag racing? Because I think I could probably take this further. As a musician, I was like, this is the path that I really want to do.
It was a
And
very pivotal moment then for
sure.
you because you had like on the surface, it sounds like a lot of really great accolades for anybody in any one of those singular fields would be looking for, but to have them across a couple of directions, it's like you could have took one and ran with it in several directions, I
Yeah.
guess. So I could sense the tension.
Yeah. Well, I was a terrible student. I was not an idiot, but I would do really well on tests, but
I can
I
relate.
would never do my homework.
I can
I would
relate.
go home and play guitar all night long. My parents would think I went to sleep. I'm still working out a solo for Metallica.
Homework never made sense to me.
Yeah, I'm good at retaining information for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, you show me a movie, I can probably
Recite it
cite
scene
back.
for scene.
Yeah. So I knew I didn't really want to go to college, although I did. I went to Nassau Community College for a little while, but it really was very short lived. I did go back, but because my band, we were recording, we were doing, trying to tour and stuff like that. So, but that was the same year pretty much that iTunes dropped and like the whole world imploded. Nobody knew what to do with anything. So we kind of got shelved, as the term goes, where they weren't sure what to do with us. So we started producing music and writing, ghost writing for other people. Wound up doing like a Delta Airlines commercial for the holidays where we had all these cups with water, different amounts of water in there, and we're using them as an instrument. So we did a lot of cool stuff that was outside of our artistic expression of ourselves, but it was kind of not rewarding. I mean, monetarily to some degree, could be rewarding.
Yeah, you started to do the work of musicians, but not really doing the original artist side of things.
Yeah, and I think that kind of caught up with me in my late 20s, where I was just saying to myself, I'm really hating this. And even though we were getting cuts, we were having huge songs in Korea and all these places, and it's like I'm feeling nothing from this. And that was a signal to me to start something different. And my filmmaking journey started right around then, where I had started this song on a ukulele, and it was during the winter, and it just felt like dualistic. Like you think ukulele, you think you're on an island in Hawaii, but I was writing a song for the snow because it was snowing. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And about the same day or so, I got my first iPhone and it had the slow-mo in it. And I started filming the snow just for fun. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like I never really picked up a camera before that. I mean, not trying to do anything ever. I would film my dad's race car going down the track. I would pick up a camera if somebody needed a photo of them. But I actually used to make fun of photographers and people because I'd say, what are you doing? You're pushing a button. I'm over here playing every note I can and not thinking that it's that impressive until I started doing it. And I retract my statement. This is extremely difficult. How do they do that? How are they drawing so much emotion from a camera? And that's where my journey really began. And I produced some music videos for a couple of songs that I wrote that I was just learning. I was like, I'm just going to put together something that feels like winter.
Yeah.
Right then, produced this song with my friends. Came out great. And from there, I decided I was going to do one for each season of the year, and did that. And I kind of did that because I had this script that I wanted to make at some point, maybe, but I didn't know if I could. I didn't know if I had the talent or the ability. So this was sort of my film school. It was like, all right, I'm going to take this year and learn on an iPhone how to make a music video and see if I can do it. And I jumped from that to making a feature-length film, and the rest is history. Now I can't stop. I'm doing this stuff professionally, all the time. So
I've been keeping up with you, and you're doing now more major brand shoots and Like you just got off of a Wells Fargo
Yeah.
commercial.
Yeah.
And
I'm being chased by mascots in my sleep.
oh, are you able to talk a little bit about that or some of that
Yeah,
experience?
I could talk to the experience of it, I guess, because I don't want to.
Was
I don't know if
that?
legal's watching.
Yeah, yeah, because they're definitely keeping up with our podcast. But
Yeah.
who is it?
Yeah.
But
No, the commercial work is like, it's very fun. It's interesting. We're flying down to Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, doing these commercial spots for some colleges and this company. And it's amazingly fun work. I know you've had James Morano on here, who's my
Yes.
partner in crime. We do a lot of crazy stuff together. He helped me out with my film, and we're working on a sequel to that film now together.
amazing.
And yeah, it's interesting to watch. And I know you had Tom Flynn on here, who's also a buddy of mine, and we all kind of grew into this field at similar times and different tangents. But actually, I think we're all going to be on a set next month together, which is going to be fun
Oh,
for a
that's
music
insane.
video. So I'm excited for that. First time all three of our brains are on something. So I'm looking forward to that.
Is it the Keith Buckley thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Every Time I Die. So when he posted that, he was looking for extras, I was like, yo,
Oh
you
yeah.
need some help.
Yeah. Honestly, that's
Just because I very rarely do anything like that, but just because it's Keith Buckley, I was like, I kind of want to see this. I want to hear. I just want to hear it more than anything.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't wait to hear what he's working on.
Oh
So-
man, in a parallel universe. When I saw that too, I was like about to jump on it. And it would have been so crazy if all of us were there.
Oh yeah,
But we actually have our next round of guests on that day too. So I was like, okay. But
I have a shoot that morning I shoot for the Ronald McDonald House as well. I do
Awesome.
their social media, which is a great charity.
how'd you get connected with that?
My wife, she started volunteering there about over a decade ago and dragged me to an event one night and was like, you're going to help move chairs. I don't care what you're doing tonight. You're coming and helping. I was like, all right. So I came and I moved chairs and got to know people, and it was a great experience. And then I really got to understand what Ronald McDonald House is about.
Yeah.
For those listeners who don't know, it's an organization that keeps families close to their children while they're in the hospital fighting off whatever, anything from cancer to, and they go up to like 21 years old. So it's just a great opportunity to help out people that really need it.
So did they do it by providing resources, by providing financial support, or a mix of it all?
Yeah, not as much financial, but they help them with housing, food,
transportation, different things like that.
transportation, which goes a long way. And especially when they're right next to the hospital, it's a huge thing. So we have a shoot coming up for them where we do a family interview every year, and we tell their story. And James and I usually, partner up on that because I'm usually interviewing and whatever. And it's tough to do everything yourself.
It's a really nice thing about like working with nonprofits. We have the opportunity of working with a few out here.
Right.
And it's like getting to kind of hear the stories. And in a lot of ways, I feel like, we're doing our part too, because it helps the nonprofit themselves expand their mission, because video is such an important thing for nonprofits too.
Yeah.
Because, it's like, I think a lot of people give flack to nonprofits because they're constantly like asking for money.
Right.
But I mean, at the same time, it's like when you finally get to know like what the missions are and like the actual direct impacts and you're capturing stories, it's like, then you understand what they're trying to do and what they need from that,
Yeah, 100%. I worked there as a house manager for a while. So I would check in families during the pandemic, check out families where, sometimes they're having the best day of their life and they're taking their baby home. And sometimes it's the worst day of their life and I have to help them. And it's
Navigate
literally the most dualistic thing I've ever done, where 1 minute we could be smiling and happy and then brought to your knees, and it's important to share those stories because it allows people to see exactly what their money is going towards. When they do round up, you go to McDonald's, they say, hey, you want to put the 90 cents of change to the Ronald McDonald house? This is where it's going. It's going to toilet paper and coffee and tissues and whatever it is that keeps the house running. And so as a filmmaker, this is like my favorite stuff to do because it helps them, it helps the families, it helps me as a person, to know that I'm doing my part in this world with talent and gifts that have been given to me. So it's a very synergistic relationship that I have. And I just came on as a volunteer. I wasn't even a filmmaker yet. And then I kind of worked my way into that world. And they were like, hey, you want to shoot this for us? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And it was great. So
as a filmmaker now, what would you say is your philosophy when you approach a project? Like if you're, especially as a director, as someone who is the creative in the process, like what is your philosophy as far as tackling it, be it the goals, who you're shooting it for, this and that?
Well, I guess my philosophy changes based off of the project.
Understandably so.
Sometimes I do a lot of prep work. Sometimes I do no prep work. Sometimes I give direction. Sometimes I don't. It's really dependent on the situation. Like I'm not really going to direct a person to say something that they don't want to say or isn't true in an interview.
Does that depend more on the people you're working with?
It does. It has also to do with what the project's about. Like if it's my project, if I'm working on my movie,
like your movie or something,
my direction will be, hey, look, I want you to give me what I want, and then you're going to do whatever you want, and we're going to see what happens. Because I don't believe in. I think directing is a two-part process where you have to have an idea of what you want to get, and then you also have to be totally cool and understanding that you're not going to get that, and that there's stuff in the ether that you didn't even know you wanted. But if you're holding on too tight to something that you want, you might not get it, and you also might miss out on the great thing that's on the in the ether and beyond. Whenever I work. Like we just shot, we're working on a sequel to my first film, and we were shooting up at the racetrack, and I had these two actors, Jesse Lyons and Joe Pontillo. They're both comedians, essentially. They're hilarious people, and I'm like, okay, here's what I need. I wrote a script, I had my script, and then when we're standing there, I'm like, these guys can't say this. They have to give me this information in their own way because they're too good. They're too funny to chain them up that way. So I said to him, hey, look, I need you to get this point across, this point, and this point. And if you can help him by making sure that you pose this question and pose that question, do it how you want. And every take was different. Now, some people would freak out if that was happening on their set, but it's like, you're going to get something spectacular out of them because you're letting them be free. Then there's other moments where I'm like, look, I really need you to deliver this line and not move your head and go nice and slow. Bring your voice down here because I'm telling you, it'll play good. And that's the width of directing is like, there's sometimes you really need to tell the actor and say like, just trust me. I'm here with you.
Let's try it.
Let's try this
route.
And then there's the other end where it's like, I'm just going to throw the ball, see if you can catch it. And exactly. I think they both work. And then there's all this medium, there's all this play in the middle. And I think like for interviews and stuff like that, to direct and coach people, it's probably not a good interview then. It should be, I've done documentary work too with that kind of stuff. And it's like, I think the best documentaries are the one where it's just supernatural. People are just
authentic
themselves and relaxed. And so, I think it's a weird thing to say you're a director on a
Documentary.
to me because I'm like, what are you directing? Like, okay, I can understand artistic color, direction,
Cameras, this
camera,
and that,
sure, yeah. But like, it's not director like Steven Spielberg's on the other side of this and twiddling his fingers and the actors mimicking everything. I don't know if you ever saw that in Indiana Jones,
Yeah.
but in the first one, the guy didn't really know what to do, I guess. So Steven Spielberg's on the other side of him, and he's like, just mirror everything I do. And he's, and the guy's just mirroring, and that's what's in the shot, and it's amazing, So it's like that level of directing.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I spent more time as a kid watching the making of things than the movie themselves. And I've always been like that. I mean, as a kid, I took apart my guitars. I took apart my toys. Everything I could.
Engineering everything.
I was like, what is making this happen? And
yeah.
I have always been interested in beyond the veil, what's happening around that curtain.
Mr. Oz.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like who's pulling the levers?
Yeah. Pinocchio, how is he moving?
Yeah. Where are these strings attached to?
Right. And I think like that's what's so fun about filmmaking. It's like there's so many different avenues you can go down. I don't have a personal preference on which one I like more. I mean, I like doing documentary kind of work, but then when I'm done with it, I'm like, I want to paint with my eyes closed and just throw it on the wall and see what happens. Like there's this, I wouldn't say I have a niche because I don't know, I wouldn't even know what that is.
Yeah.
My thing is I like to work with people. I like to draw things out of people that they perhaps wouldn't have known they could, or even myself, it's like, oh, wow, we work together and now I'm able to express myself in a way that I didn't know I could.
Yeah.
So that's really where I gravitate towards. You have a lot of nice cameras up here, everything, a lot of nice lighting. I know almost nothing about that. Yet I've been doing this professionally for years now. I am probably the best example of a person that's going to tell you anyone can do this because I still don't know. Like, thank God I have an audio engineering background that I can like correlate a lot of this to, but like shutter speed, stops, like my James Morano, who we just discussed before, like he is.
Oh, he's like a technical genius, man.
He's a wizard.
Yes. He is like, the wizard.
I'll be like, oh man, how do we do that? And he's like, well, we can do this. And I'm like, how did you know we could do that?
Poof.
Yeah, because he has that insane ability to understand the technology at a high level.
Yeah.
And I think where we work well together is that I don't. And it's almost like a beginner's mindset. They talk about that being like how like a lot of great
people have always been students more than masters.
Sure. I never want to be the master. Yeah. I'd rather be a student.
I'd rather be the dumbest person in the room because I'm always learning.
Yeah. Well, I recently heard the rest of the statement, but jack of all trades, master of none.
Yes.
Still always better than a master of one. So my grandfather was a carpenter, mechanic. My father is a mechanic, could build anything. My uncle, same thing. Like I come from a long line of
jack of all trades.
Yeah, and people that can get it done and do a nice job, and uncles, and I feel like I'm carrying that lineage in a way. So
beautiful.
Yeah, I think it helps in filmmaking for me to be able to understand it enough, but not too much to stop me from being creative with it.
Which reminds me of something that like we even mentioned briefly before. Because at first, first off, like I relate so much because I feel very similarly with my team in the sense that like, I think my guys on a technical sense, on a cinematic sense, they know all the movies, the classic cinema mastery movies to watch, and they know this and that, and they definitely have a keener ear down to the floor about that. And I know my fair share amount, but like nowhere near to that level in the sense of like someone who's like someone like James or some of my guys in that sense. Like I've never seen. There's certain like just regular classic Spielberg movies or stuff like that I still haven't seen and different things like that. And I don't have I have an audio background as well, musician background, but I've always been the type to. I am a quick starter. I can get basically the foundation together really well,
Yeah.
and then I can push from there. But I am more of the creative and higher level. I rather put systems together and get like the people who really know and like everyone building something up together in
Yeah.
that sense. And I think I work well with them in that sense because they keep me grounded as far as limitations and possibilities. But I also think that like as a creative, it keeps you shackle free in the sense that you don't maybe necessarily know all the ins and outs, but you also aren't 100% fully aware of your limitations either.
Yeah.
So you'll instinctively may ask for things outside of the limitations. And then sometimes someone comes to you like, that can't happen because of this and this. It's like, well, why not? Maybe if we try from this unorthodox angle or this or that,
Yeah.
let's figure it out. And I think that it's a very much a collaborative,
Yeah.
And I think human species are like that. And speaking about being a jack of all trades, you were talking to me a lot about how you were seeing the industry go, like, the fall of Rome, as you put it before. But I love the parallel you made to the music industry. So you mentioned just earlier about how iTunes and Napster kind of made this quake across
Yeah.
record labels and stuff like that because no one knew what to do. We're going to digital. CD sales became a thing of the past, like overnight, and that was the whole point of a record deal was to get you on printed material and then you were getting out there and tours were secondary.
Right.
Tours were the way to promote your CDs. So
Right.
you made your money on CD sales. And now it's completely flipped.
Nobody
It's like,
tours anymore.
yeah. Or if anything, your streaming is to help you get the audience in the tour so you make some money on that.
Why do you have to tour when you can tour from your living room and hit 1 million people on
Yeah.
TikTok? Like
It's like, what do you need the big company for anymore?
You don't.
know?
Yeah.
And I want you kind of to revisit that and see and talk about how you're seeing the parallel in the filmmaking world.
Yeah. Well, I'm no expert. I'm not an industry person, so whatever I say can be taken at face value, of course. But I grew up in a moment in time where you can go to Staples and buy Acid Music Pro, which was like early Pro Tools, Cubase kind of stuff that you can just go and buy and start recording yourself. And I started on a Tascam 4-track tape thing, and figured, oh man, I could do all this on a computer now. And was really part of that revolution of DIY home producers. And we were writing and producing and recording our own records and essentially got a record deal because we were doing that. We did that at a time where it was just before iTunes. Taking Back Sunday kind of just broke right ahead of us. And they were like the last band to sign like a big deal and like take it all the way.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody kind of did that after them because the world changed, it imploded.
They were really at the tail end of that boom in music at that time.
And once we signed to Capitol Records, it was right around that same time. And I watched the whole world crumble because they were like, oh my God, how are we going to sell albums? People could just buy one song, and they were worried about money. They weren't worried about artists, and they didn't know how to like wield it as an artist's tool because it wasn't about that. It was about making money. And I never got into this to make money. I wasn't like a kid that was like, I want to be rich and famous. I was like, I just want to make music. I want to be able to make music whenever I want. I don't care if I make, just enough to be able to do that in my life. I don't need more. If I get more, great. That wasn't the thing.
Yeah.
And so I took a back seat with my band and said, okay, let's start writing and producing for other people and seeing how that goes. But we watched the industry, like studios were closing, and what was happening was people were taking the power back. I mean, look at today. It's amazing that you can produce and record a song on your iPhone, and it could be on the radio. It could be all over the world. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a lot. And the biggest lesson I learned in my life is that it's not the tools that you have. You know, it's what you do with those tools. You know, if you wind up figuring out how the iPhone microphone really works and where it works best, you could record a beautiful guitar track on your phone in your living room, and that could be part of the record. If I had that when I was 14, I would have been doing that. I would have been recording songs on my iPhone because I really didn't have a lot, you know.
I mean, a good example is like Billie Eilish.
Sure.
She did her whole first record.
Look at Bon Iver, you know,
Yeah.
one SM57 and, you know, a cabin and great songs. And that's the key. It's like, it's not about about the gear.
Yeah.
It's what your output is. It's what's coming out of the speakers. It's what's coming off the screen that really counts. And
now you got streaming disrupting the filmmaking industry.
You could put your movie on YouTube and get 1 million people watching it. Could you have done that 20 years ago? No.
Yeah.
And so what you're seeing today from the movie industry is exactly that. People are freaking out because unfortunately their jobs are going to be taken away from them. I've been going to McDonald's over the last few years and dealing with no cashiers because I could do it on my phone. I could walk up to the counter and push a couple of buttons and my order goes in. That's part of the reality of life. It's not me being like, negative about it. It's just the reality.
Well, it's like you said. It's not that the industry is evaporating, but it's shifting. It's shifting
going to us.
Yes,
we're able to now. And again, another example that I could prove is someone like me can pick up their iPhone and shoot a feature-length film. We got 24 nominations and 14 wins in the festival circuit last year. I would have been happy to maybe get accepted to one.
Yeah.
But I didn't go and do this for that. I just did it because it felt like the right thing to do with what I made.
Yeah.
But it's amazing to stand back and go, wow, we were able to achieve so much with very little. My movie cost $5,000 to make.
Really?
Wow. Friends, family, that's who we made it with.
Yeah.
And favors
it's
from
called
people.
Sunday, correct?
Sunday. And it's a culmination of kind of everything. I scored the film. I wrote all the music.
Oh, you did all the music?
Yep.
Oh, so is that like some stuff from your band or it's just all original stuff?
All original stuff that I'd made.
Oh, that's a great soundtrack, man.
Thanks, man. It was a lot of fun. It was actually one of the most exciting aspects of it for me because I was like, man, I always wanted to score a film. And I don't think anybody's just going to give me that chance without ever doing it. So I was like, I'm just going to make my own movie and score it.
Well, I will say too, it's like for people who haven't had a chance to check it out, is that I actually, even though I knew it was on an iPhone originally, I completely forgot going into the film. And
that's good.
It's great because I actually didn't think. I was thinking like, maybe he had some classic. I know James is super into the classic lenses and the classic filmmaking gear. This looks like a Super 35 in some points. It looks like they got a couple different old style cameras going on from time to time, outside of the drone shots, of course. And
we're controlling with an iPhone, so
yeah,
we'll count it.
But it had a great look. The story was great. I learned so much about drag racing. And dude, the cars were beautiful. You had, I guess such great, but like you say, you come from that background. You grew up in that community and it was just well done. And to see that it's like, yeah, you did that with $5,000, a couple of years in your belt and some good friends and family. And then the interesting thing, see, looking at the behind the scenes, that somehow the whole movie was exclusively filmed on Sundays, inadvertently.
Yeah, for the most part, not everything, but like a
good
huge
chunk,
percentage,
like 90%
of it.
of it was pretty much.
It wasn't on purpose. It was just that everybody was available on Sundays usually, And drag racing takes place on Sunday. That's why
Yeah.
back in the day, there used to be a commercial on the radio all over the country. It goes, Sunday, Sunday, Sunday.
I remember
race.
hearing it.
Yeah.
I remember that. Like it was like ingrained in my head when I hear it. I always thought it was like wrestling or like something else.
Well,
But,
they
like,
use it for like monster trucks and stuff
monster
like that
trucks
too.
and stuff like that. Like I
But-
just remember the generic Sunday, Sunday,
Yeah.
Sunday.
I mean, that was the easiest part of the movie because if you watch the making of, I kind of go into it a little more in depth. But like I before I even had an idea of making a movie, I dreamt. I lucid dream often, like where I'm in control of my sleep and I'm aware I'm dreaming. And I had this dream where I was in a theater watching my movie that I made with myself, and myself was like walking me through it. And I woke up, I was like, that was pretty awesome. And I wrote it all down, but I had never really picked up a camera.
And this was that movie.
And essentially, yeah, I became that. But the one thing that like I woke up and knew is like at the end of the movie, they went, it's Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. I was like, that's the name of the movie. That was the easiest thing to get because I was like, what a perfect name, you know? And the type of racing that's in this movie, it's not like Fast and the Furious where it's like kind of absurd, you know. Tasting something extremely authentic is like, it's kind of hard to do, you know, with film, because a lot of times it's over exaggerated. And not to say that we didn't do that a little bit, but coming from a drag racing background, like this is a type of racing that anybody can do. You can take out your Honda Civic and go win.
It was amazing to see that particular part of it. I would have never really known that, but like seeing that it really revolved around a level of control and consistency between machine and person.
Yes.
And really like go to show it really did not matter what you came in with, but can you stay by your word? Essentially, this is the test, this is the number,
right?
And I suggest watching.
Well, that's the film itself was exactly the parallel, because the test was, we have the slowest car on the track, or we have the slowest camera, we have the littlest thing. I mean, there are people out there that are raising $500,000 to make a movie, and they renting a red, and they're doing, and I'm like, no offense, but like, do you think you should be doing that for your first film? Do what you want. I'm not knocking anybody. I'm just asking you to ask yourself a question. It's like, can you get it done with this?
Yeah.
Can you squeeze all the juice out of this lemon? Because I tell you what, it's pretty sweet when you really get this dialed in right. We used Filmic Pro, which is an app that turns your phone into a DSLR essentially.
Gives you full control over all the camera features on the phone.
We went to London, James and I, and we were in the International Motor Awards over there, and which is like a film festival for cars. So they had
that must have been sick.
Oh, it was amazing. It was one of the best festivals
I've ever been. You guys were nominated.
We were nominated for best independent film, which I couldn't believe.
Congrats.
And we're sitting next to Ferrari and Porsche and Lamborghini, and they all have horses in the race, and we're sitting there like a bunch of bums from Long Island, New York, going, why are we here? This is crazy. And they played our trailer, and you know, they're playing the category, and the trailer finishes and it says shot on an iPhone. You should have heard the place. They were like, what? No. It was amazing. And we didn't win, but just to be in the circle, in the arena, was amazing.
Big players.
Oh, with big players. And what really happened was we went back to the hotel after that, and we were like, what if we had one more shot at this? We just saw what's out there. Can we beat these guys? And now we're making a sequel. And now we're taking the iPhone a little bit to the next level. Could I shoot it on a Blackmagic, which I shoot with all the time? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But there's still meat on the bone. You know, a friend of mine said to me, he's like, why are you making another iPhone movie? You just did that. You hit a home run. And I said to him, well, a home run's different than a grand slam. I want to bring everybody. I want to hit every note that I missed the last time. It took us 5 years the last time. I was learning. I never made anything like that in my life. I went from 3-minute music videos to a feature-length film, hour and 50 minutes. It's a big jump.
Oh yeah.
And so after that, I said, oh, well, I always equate it to like playing guitar. You know, you pick up a guitar, somebody shows you a C chord, and you take a strum, right? It might not come out great. You might get it. But that's what the first movie was just the first strum. So it's like, I kind of want to see if I can get a little more music out of it, you know, and squeeze it a little bit better and get some more notes out of there. And so that's what this whole thing is about. It's like just showing our growth as filmmakers, and that it doesn't matter what you're shooting it on. It matters what you're shooting. And I think the story's good. So I'm really excited for us to share that when we cross that bridge. You know, it's coming out pretty great. We got all these vintage lenses.
Yeah, you guys already in middle production of the sequel?
Yeah, we're probably like more than halfway done filming.
Awesome.
Which is exciting. We spent the whole summer pretty much going back and forth to the drag strip, doing all that stuff. And now we're picking up the last pieces of the puzzle, and then hopefully through the winter start editing it up and getting it all.
Fantastic.
I already started doing the score for it, because the first movie, there's no car after 1975 in it.
Yeah.
And so that's to give it a period piece look, you know. And then, so rather than go to 1976 to continue the story, I said, well, I'm going to jump 10 years later.
80s.
1985.
Nice.
It gives us new music, cool
car.
new cars,
Yeah.
cool neon looks that we can go for. That's kind of gonna, so it's almost like a way to like test ourselves as filmmakers, and we're trying to make it feel like a movie that was made in the 80s that maybe you missed.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the idea there.
And as independents, it really goes to that point of how like really Hollywood, the film industry is going from these big production companies to smaller ones.
Yeah.
These small teams similar to ours that are now we're working with the bigger brands and this and that. Like you and James are essentially a team, and you guys are now, you know, doing these different high level brands, commercials and stuff, because the technology is there, the resources is there, and there's no need for overinflated things as far as those things. Like, yes, there is an occasional need for a big set or something else, depending on what you're trying to do. But it's definitely like a shift. It's a major shift from like these huge mega production houses. And as it shows, just like being able to do a festival worthy film, you know, on a minimal budget, you know, and being able to work on it. I think you guys made a great example of that.
Well, to your point, you know, a lot of people don't like people like James and I, because we cut the legs off of so many people that are basically spending a client's money. I mean, I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but I can't tell you how many times James and I have come into a situation and they told us about last year's project that they did, how much money it cost, what they did, and then they see what we produce and they go, how does this look better? And you guys showed up with backpacks. And I go, the world as you know it is over. That you can't play by yesterday's book because it's already obsolete. People like us are coming in and undercutting huge jobs because the speed in which we can achieve the Blackmagic camera, which James and I both shoot on.
Yeah.
$2,400. It's not a small not a small amount of money, but for what you're getting out of it for a cinema camera, putting a couple of good lenses on it, shooting raw, you don't need a lot to come home with something that feels big budget. And that's the key, and also you're able to work faster, thus keeping time down, needing less crew. Mm-hmm. So does that hurt the industry in a way? Yes and no, because people are losing their jobs because there's no need for that many people on a film set anymore, perhaps. But then more people can go out there and work on their own. You can go essentially and buy a camera and pick up your own clients and
in some ways
work in a different way.
In some ways, you can make even more.
Yeah, I mean, I do editing work. People just send me stuff now because I'm as a musician. I think that's my biggest thing is like I understand right where the downbeat
Yeah.
is. Maybe we want to
You
be
understand
before
the
it.
rhythm
Maybe
of
we want
the
to be after
scenes.
it.
Yeah.
I understand music. So also when I'm shooting, especially like Taking Back Sunday, I do a lot of work for them. I know those songs like the back of
Yeah.
my hand because I grew up with it, but also I've been shooting them so long. So I know when Adam's going to spin. I know when he's going to flip the mic, like, and I know when to track it. So when you build a rapport with something and then you really get to know it, you streamline all the processes. I'm editing as I'm shooting. I know I'm going to edit it, so I already know what I want to shoot. And James is the same way. We're editing while we're shooting. We're like, let's just do that again
You
because
shoot with the edit
this
in mind, basically. Yeah.
yeah, and when you're in this day and age, like what we were talking about earlier, it's like got to have all those faculties. You got to be able to edit, color, sound. You got to have it all because very soon you'll see like it's going to be less and less where it's like you send it out to a colorist, you send it out to a sound guy. It's the way the world's going. Go to B&H. You can go and buy a whole kit with everything you need to start making films, and it's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Same thing with guitar, or recording. You can go on Musician's Friend and order a bunch of mics and a little mixer and all that you need, and use your DAW and produce a full record. And something that sounds like maybe if you're good enough, if you really have tuned ears and an ability to write good music, make a record that holds up.
And
so
just pretty much, find your tribe in a sense. Find your small team. Like, you get that solid editor, the solid shooter.
Sure.
So maybe one guy's the creative, one guy is, you want to play to your strength.
Yeah.
And then find people who fill in your weaknesses.
Don't get me wrong. I don't think I'm good at anything in particular.
Yeah.
I'm good at like a lot of things. My biggest strength, like I said, is watching the whole play. I like being the coach, encouraging the players to play their hardest. That's like kind of my favorite thing about this aspect of creativity, of filmmaking.
Yeah.
If you asked me to shoot something, I could do it, but I'd rather James shoot it because he's the best.
Yeah, that's it. You play to the strengths.
You're
watching everything unfold. You're keeping tabs.
Totally.
We
did a music video for this band, The Sleeping. They're from Long Island.
Great. Yeah. No, Sleeping's a great band.
They haven't been with this lineup for like, I don't know, a long time. I was a big fan. They were kind of coming up when we did too, my band. And just out of the blue, got a phone call. They were like, hey, we had this guy. He dropped out. He was supposed to direct it. Can you shoot this video tomorrow, essentially? And James and I were like, let's go. And we shot this music video in like 24 hours, edited, cut it, and we edited it together in like 4.5 hours. And when we sent it, we sent it to the band, colored everything, no notes. I've never in my life had that and it was like that moment for me of realizing like, oh, we've crossed the threshold. Like now we are, well, at least for me, I'm not gonna speak for James, but like I'm at a point where I believe in what I'm doing, that like I trust my taste. If I do something, it's on purpose, and these guys,
that affirmation, like from a client, like
a band like that I respect so much at going, we have no notes. It was perfect. I'm like, I felt that way, but I can't believe you did.
Yeah.
And it was such a affirmation for me. And again, we threw it together in like a day. There was literally like no thought to it. It was just like, we're just going to go and paint and see what we draw, see what we put on the canvas.
That's so cool.
And we literally did that. We had Doug in a little pool, and we dumped paint over his head in slow motion.
So great.
And we sped the music up, so he was singing in regular speed, but it was coming out in time in slow motion, and then the paint was dripping down his face in slow motion. And then at the very end of the edit, I was like, James, start zooming in on him and turn him upside down and reverse it. And so he starts flipping and all the paint's dripping off. And it was just like a crazy, wacky thing that like wound up being like, that's the dopest thing I've ever seen. And, and the band flipped. They loved it, And so for me, what my favorite aspect of this is like that whole thing of just throw paint on the wall and see what sticks. Like you could plan all day. You make plans and God laughs. That's
100%.
That's my thing. That's my mantra out there. So be prepared for him to laugh, as much as you're prepared for you to get what you want.
I truly believe that life, more than anything, to make it in life, it's all about adaptability. How good are you at pivoting? How good are you like a football player making it down the field? How good are you making split-second decisions to dodge these tackles that life? And life is like that constantly.
I was on the road with John Nolan playing guitar for him, and we were out in the middle of nowhere, and we're on the road trying to get to this gig, I think in Denver. And I had been shooting just for fun, like
Great.
For whatever, just to put a little
tour
doc, together. And we're coming down the highway, and we come to a dead stop for like 10, 15 minutes, to the point everybody's getting out of their cars.
Like car trouble or traffic?
No, traffic. And we're in like the middle of the desert, and I'm like, this is crazy. And like the sun's setting, I'm like, we're never gonna make it. And so I was like, John, grab the guitar. And he had this song about going home and wanting to get home. And I was like, let's record you playing this the traffic was miles, you could see it. And I put him right in the center of the road with all the cars, and he performed the song. And then throughout the rest of the time, I kept filming him in all these different locations playing the song. And it came out amazing. We did this music video. Turns out a truck full of SpaghettiOs flipped over and burnt. We could smell it all the way from there.
Oh my goodness.
But it was like, SpaghettiOs, we made a music video. And you turned an obstacle into an opportunity. When are you going to get to shut down a road with miles of traffic and the sunset? Like,
when are you ever going to get the perfect chance to say, SpaghettiOs?
I got it. I could retire now.
I don't think anyone would get that.
Yeah. I mean, it worked out really well. But that's an example of making the most out of what you're given,
And I love like for me personally, I think it's so sick that you get to work with a band like Taking Back Sunday. Like, especially like us being from Long Island, they're like essentially Long Island heroes. They really are the most recent mega band to really break out of the island realistically.
It's fun to say, they're friends now, because it's like I grew up not too far away from them, and I was on tour with a band called Gabriel the Marine. And they had opened with John or on his solo stuff, so they took them out with Taking Back Sunday. And the first time I met John, we were hanging out, and he's like, we're in New Orleans. He's like, you want to go to the oldest bar in the country? I'll buy a beer. I was like, hell yeah, let's go. And talked to him all night, had a great conversation. And then one thing led to another. I hit him up like a few months later. I was like, hey, I'm doing the song for a movie. You want in on it? You want to work with me? He's like, yeah, let's do it.
That's sick.
And the first thing we ever did came out awesome. And like, then he would ask me to play guitar with him, and then music video, and then Taking Back Sunday. And it
always goes back to just how you treat people, how you
got to be cool. Like that's the thing about working in this industry. I don't care what you're doing. Like we did this big commercial shoot, James and I, like we were with a group of people. Like by the end of it, I missed them. We had a good time. We had fun. We were all normal people to one another. We respected each other's abilities and craft. And we also had to hang out together for like 2 weeks. And it's the same thing in a band, where it's like, you may not be the best guitar player in the world, but you might be the best guitar player for this project, because you can hang with these people. You can spend time with them, not make anybody feel uncomfortable, and produce what needs to be done. And that's honestly more important than how good you are at anything. Yeah. It's what you're bringing to the table on a personal level as well.
Yeah. Do you follow through on your commitment? Of course, the job you're there for. But more importantly, how do you make everyone else feel? Because at the end of the day, you can give them an amazing product, but if everyone just hated the feeling they had being around you, that's probably the last. You'll get your money, but that's probably the last time they'll ever call you.
Totally.
But if you give them a product, maybe it's not the best thing in the world, but it's good. You follow through on your commitment, but they felt amazing around you. They felt like they could have spent like all the time in the world with you. I guarantee you're probably going to get a call back every time because there's like, hey, I love spending time with you. You gave me what I wanted, what I asked for, and you just made the process feel good, easy, and
And it works both ways.
yeah,
There's plenty of people I worked with where I'm like, I will never work with that person again.
I don't care if they call.
I don't care how much money you throw. I've done it
Yeah.
plenty of times because
Same.
it's like, why am I chasing you down for what you owe me? I delivered,
Yeah.
or man, you made my life hell for no reason. Just because James and I always make a joke. It's like, everybody's got to touch it. If you just painted your car and put the first coat of wax on it, somebody wants to come over and put their finger on it. I don't care what it is. And it's the same thing with film production. The bass player wants his bass louder. The person at the top CFO wants more yellow in it.
That's like
Somebody's got to touch it. Even though everybody's happy, it's working, they got to touch it, which I get and it's fine. But when it goes too far is when I'm like, I'm out. I don't need to deal with this anymore. I got other people that appreciate and work, in a productive manner that I want to work in.
It's so true. It's like, because when you're like this close to something, you also at the same time, you don't see what is happening around it and what it's going to be.
Totally.
You're like, it's like the common example for us, at least in the filmmaking world, is raw footage versus delivered footage, which a lot of clients struggle with.
Yeah.
They because it's a new concept for them, understandably so.
Yeah.
But to really get the best outcome, you need things to be very raw in the beginning.
Yeah.
But if sometimes they struggle, like, they want to see it immediately every step of the way, and so it's like you're this close to it, you really lose.
I don't deliver anything without a LUT on it anymore.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I refuse. I don't care.
I don't let them look at the monitor unless the LUT's turned on the monitor.
No, it's like recording too. Like sometimes, somebody hears a guitar soloed and they're like, "Oh my god, it sounds terrible."
I'm like, with the mix.
Yeah, but that's not. It's doing a purpose. It's serving a purpose within the mix, and you can't change it because then you take it out and there's some lackluster thing there. And I think in the corporate world, it's even worse because these people don't understand that they're pulling out pillars that are actually holding up this whole thing. By having to touch it.
The most recent thing I did when my band were currently recording a record, and I was like, we lay our tracks down, and then you don't touch it until you hear the rough mix.
Right.
Like, you're lay it down. You will trust the process. Just make sure you perform it well. But after that, doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Do we get to the rough mix? And then we can start going on to mixing decisions, and we can revisit things. But it's going to sound right, and I don't want any perfectionism happening before there's anything that actually needs to be corrected.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard stories, and I've experienced it myself, where big bands are recording. They do a scratch where the whole band plays, and then the bass player goes in and re-records his bass because when he heard it soloed, it didn't sound great, and he made a mistake.
Or anything.
And then everybody hated it. Yeah. And then they solo up bring that bass back in from initially, and they're like, it can't move now. It's part of and I think imperfection is such an important part of filmmaking. When you watch any great movie, like working on a period piece, you're always concerned, there's a satellite dish back there, or that car's from 1991. I've watched so many movies that, like I was watching Rudy, and I think it's like 1965, and I'm watching it and I see a Toyota Tercel drive in the background, and I'm like, if it can happen there, it's okay if it happens in my movie. And when you have those little moments, actually, I think it makes it more honest, better. I think Ford versus Ferrari, as far as car movies, really crushed it.
Oh yeah,
perfect.
I thought
I would actually say this is a perfect car film.
Fantastic movie, fantastic actors, fantastic
everything.
But like, I even heard the Game of Thrones thing. They had a Starbucks cup.
Right.
I remember one of the scenes.
Hey, it happens, So I think you have to be able to, as much as you are about getting what you want, you have to be able to let go.
Yeah.
It's so key.
And always just, it's like when those things happen and you don't notice it till it's out there, it's like, understand you did your part. And if it doesn't hurt a multi-million-dollar project, it's not going to hurt you.
Totally. You're going to see the strings on the puppets. That's just it's just going to wind up happening.
And especially if the creative is there, people aren't going to be taken out necessarily. Like,
right.
I would say when I was watching your film, even though you guys don't establish the time, it felt very cohesive. It felt like the period, the way you filmed and everything. And you guys didn't have a big budget. And I loved hearing in the behind the scenes that you guys had so many friends parking your cars on the neighborhood to give a little bit more of an ambiance. I didn't even notice that until you mentioned it. And I started thinking back to it. And I'm like, oh, snap. Because the whole time, everything felt cohesive. And everything, because of everything felt cohesive. And it didn't take me out in that sense.
Well, there's a conscious effort there. It's like you don't realize that in that one scene where it's not really a big pivotal scene of the movie.
Yeah.
But for some reason, there's something magical about this gold Nova pulling up and in the driveways of all the other houses, because my grandma's neighbors were cool. We parked a Buick over there and this.
Yeah.
And the viewer doesn't maybe not get it, but I'm like, you don't understand.
It's
this shot mentally puts your brain in 1975. And it didn't take too much. It took 4 cars and avoiding as much as you possibly could that would take you out of it. And when I talk to young filmmakers, I'm like, you got to make something you think you could do. I know cars. I know car culture.
Yeah.
Am I the best mechanic? Hell no. But I do know enough that I can get the viewer to actually feel like they're tasting something authentic when they're watching my film. And I think that's what you have to do. If you grew up and your parents worked in a bowling alley, make a movie about bowling. If you have access to a convenience store or whatever, just do that.
Yeah.
That you have to make something that you think you can deliver.
Yeah. So the last thing I kind of want to hear from you right before we wrap up is I just want to hear a little bit of also the story behind this backyard Taking Back Sunday concert that happened recently.
Sure.
That like blew up on social media and everything because no one knew what was happening. And then I come to find out you and James are behind filming that. It was for a music video, right? Or something like that. So just a little bit about how that came about and how that actual experience was doing something like that, impromptu kind of little backyard fest. And then,
Taking Back Sunday is like a staple around these parts for people of our age, for sure. And I was called a few weeks before, 2 weeks before the shoot, and they're looking for a location. I was like, oh, okay, I'm not really sure. Let me dig around a little bit. It was kind of like everything was changing around them, and they wanted to have behind the scenes stuff. And so they called me and were like, listen, can you make sure to get, the making of this essentially? I was like, yeah. And I brought James with me. And while we were there, we were kind of confused because it was like kind of up in the air what was happening almost the whole time.
Yeah.
We weren't sure if the cops were going to show up and shut it down. So I just told James, I was like, listen, shoot everything, just shoot your own music video. Forget what's happening. Just do your thing. I'll do my thing. These guys will do their thing, and we'll see what we get. Because the cops could show up, and we might need to stitch this together with every little bit they got, or we'll get it all in. Who knows? It wound up working out perfectly. We did the shoot at a house in Lindenhurst. And I was on vacation. I was out in the Hamptons with my wife for like a couple of days on just like taking a couple of day breather, which we haven't done in a while. And of course, this landed on that weekend.
Of course.
So I told my wife, I said, listen, I'm going to bring my camera and stuff. I'm going to leave that afternoon. I'll come back at nighttime. And I left there and left the shoot, came back to the Hamptons, woke up the next day, and my wife goes, you're on a video that has like 5 million plays on Barstool. And I see myself on there. I'm like, I hadn't no clue what was going to happen. I was just showing up to help and to be a part of it and do my part. And it came out great. I mean, like, they used a bunch of our footage in there, and it was just such a cool experience to be in one of those backyard shows. It felt very old school,
It felt so punk.
Yeah, it was very punk rock. And those guys are the best. I really enjoy spending time with them. I did Sad Summerfest with them this year. I went out on tour with them for a little bit and got a bunch of social media stuff. So, and I guess, the biggest thing I'll say from that is like what we were talking about before. It's like, you got to be somebody that you can hang with. Like I've sat there and talked with these guys for hours and hours and hours about everything other than music and filmmaking. Like, you have to have more than what camera and lens you're shooting on to bring to the table with everything. And I think that's a big part of it when you're getting brought in on these things. It's like you have to have more than what you're being hired to bring in. And we had a blast. It was just so much fun, man. Yeah.
Dude, that is so cool. And I feel like we could just keep talking and talking.
We'll have to do it again. Yeah. I'll interview you next time.
That'll be good. That'll be good. I think the last thing I want to hear is like, now for people who may be watching this, just getting started, is there any particular thing from your experience going into filmmaking and everything that a young filmmaker should know or should keep in mind, things that you wish you knew when you were starting?
It's a long list.
Well, pick one that really sticks out to you.
I'll say the one that sticks out to me the most is I wish I had lav mics when I first started. When I first started making my movie, I kind of had this stupid idea to be like, we're gonna make it like The Godfather. We're gonna have a boom mic and that's it. And worst mistake of my life. But that's my like I had an idea and I should have been more open, because somebody had mentioned, they were like, what about lav mics? And I didn't do it. And that's what we're doing this time.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was probably like my only note.
Oh, dude, it was a nightmare. And what happened was, not to make a long story longer, but I had edited so much of the movie and it was pretty good. And I was driving home from work one day in the Dart, and I'd made a left turn and the door of the Dart opened and my computer went flying out, and had to recover the hard drive. Like, everything was on there. Thank God we were able to, but it actually threw the whole thing off kilter. And it was one of those things at the end where I was just like, I
must have been questioning life at that moment.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But, we live and we learn. And, I guess the other thing is just listen to those who've come before you, have mentors, find people, do things for free. Free is not a bad thing. Karmic freedom is like a different thing. When you help somebody else out, it's going to come back to you. You're also building your resume. So do things for free. Learn your craft. Pick up a friend that needs a music video. Do it for them. Like, learn before you decide you're going to just go make a feature film like Star Wars. It's probably not going to happen. So test the waters first, Yeah.
I heard it once before. The sooner you're only going to succeed after you get past the suck. So get to the suck part as fast as possible and get through it.
It always sucks because you look back and go, I could have done that better.
Yeah. But you got to get through it so you can get to the actual success. So.
100%.
Well, thank you so much for coming down.
Thanks for having
being
me.
on
Appreciate
today.
It.
Now, for people who want to follow you, people maybe want to check out Sunday, and check out where the sequel is going to be. How should people keep track? How should people follow you?
Obi-Wan Natoli. That's my handle on Facebook, Instagram. You can, my name is Anthony Natoli, if it makes it any easier, but Sundayfilm.com. That's where we have copies of the movie you can purchase to support the film and support the sequel. Not sure when the sequel is going to be done yet, but on my YouTube page, we have the making of and a bunch of other little clips and stuff that you can check out to get a taste of what the movie's about. Check out the trailer, and yeah, let me know what you think. It's if anybody out there needs help or questions, I always answer. So we're here to teach. We're here to pass along information. So open door.
100%. Well, thank you so much. And as always, you can find us at Vision Maker Podcast to keep track with all the episodes and keep track with our other adventures over at Vision Maker Productions. And again, thank you so much, and catch you all later. Please make sure to subscribe.